The whole purpose of communication, the whole purpose of all forms of communication is to bring about unity. But sometimes communication can bring about division because of the lack of information, because of distorted news, because of jealousy, because of narrow-mindedness. There are many reasons that communication, which is supposed to bring about communion, brings about division. And we see this so clearly. Even during this pandemic, we find that there was so much information on the news, in the internet, and yet the world was so polarized between those who want vaccination and those who don't want vaccination. And everybody, again, was strong and convicted of their own views. How do we bring about communion effectively? It is not just a question of formation. It is not just a question of having the right information alone will bring about communion. I think at the end of the day, communion requires us to go beyond just having information. Communion requires us to journey with each other. Let us learn to feel with each other. Let us learn to listen to each other. Let us come together to share our experiences, our struggles, even our own opinions. But we do it with that great openness. The heart of communion, the heart of communication must begin with empathy. There can be no communication, no openness, if one does not have empathy. Empathy for me is the prerequisite. So when we talk about communion, we talk about communication, I think being observant is the first step. Observant of people's expression, likings, preferences, pain, whatever it is. I think we don't pay attention, as often we say, to the physical expression of the person. That is why sometimes we look at each other. Do we know that our colleague today is feeling sad, is moody, is irritable? There are reasons, but we are not attentive. We become judgmental, we get angry, we begin to condemn this person. How can this person be so rude? Yeah, because the person is struggling with some issues. It's not a question of right or wrong at this point of time. It's a question that we are being sensitive. So when we are sensitive to people, then we know how to communicate, when to communicate, what to say, what not to say, when to say. That is the first step. Observing the details. So if you have a heart of charity, of course, you will be attentive to these details. Unfortunately, for many of us, we lack charity. We are always self-absorbing. We are thinking about our own needs, our own sufferings, our own problems, but we are not attentive to the fact that others around us, they too are going through certain struggles as well. The way to communication first means observation, out of charity, being sensitive to people's feelings, to people's struggles, to people's pain. Empathy comes about because of own past experiences. We can only empathize when we have gone through similar events in one's life. Sometimes within the church, we have so much division, so much quarrels, misunderstanding, simply because we lack that kind of empathy. And that's why, even though as church, members of organizations are supposed to work together for the mission of bringing communion in the world. But we are also hurt. We are also wounded. And sometimes within the church, so much misunderstanding, a lack of compassion, a lack of tolerance. We are judgmental, and this brings about division. And so the way to communication begins with charity and compassion.